Now, under changes to the Education Act last year, schools in England are meant to be helping cut the cost of uniforms.
Well, that could be by promoting cheaper second-hand options or by removing unnecessary branded items.
However, as the Children's Society have found that pupils were still expected to have an average of 3 branded items of uniform, which is incredible. I didn't know that. Alice Beer is here with all the latest advice. Alice,
Hi, Alice.
I didn't know this. And the costs and the amount of gear that's required, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Well, we shouldn't be discussing this, should we? Because the onus has come onto schools from the government. It's guidance only, it's not really enforceable, to say that you've got to keep the price of uniforms down. And we know that in the supermarkets and in other places on the high street, uniforms are cheap, they're great value.
Yeah.
It's those branded items. So they slip in a branded item that you've got to buy from a specific retailer, and it's expensive. You know, and some pupils, 3 branded items per pupil.
Yeah.
A third of secondary school pupils were required to have 4 to 5 branded items. And then you're talking about £40 jumpers, £46 blazers. Yeah. It's just
and it
unaffordable.
adds up the more kids you've got as well. So
and what was really important is that the government was saying, under this guidance, it shouldn't actually dictate which schools parents were choosing for their children when they're helping them select those secondary schools. But of course it will influence it if they can't afford the uniforms. So it's a really important thing to address.
So what can parents do?
Well, there are lots of things to do, and there are lots of great initiatives happening all around the country. And I think we're going to speak to somebody in Harrogate who's got some great ideas. So.
No, absolutely. Someone who's made it their own local initiative to help keep the rising cost of uniforms low is owner of Hartlepool ReLoved Clothing. We've got Natalie Franklin here. She joins us alongside volunteer Kirsty Reed to tell us more about it. And we were talking about this morning. I think lots of people that haven't got children of school age were quite shocked to hear the amount of money being spent per year on secondary and primary school clothing. Natalie, tell us about ReLoved Clothing and how it works.
So back in July last year, we began a school uniform project to rehome school uniform that was in a good wearable condition. And our demand just went up and up and up. And it increased over the winter with the cost of living crisis, gas and electric bills. Now, we set up a clothing foundation where parents can come in and receive uniform as well as every other item of clothing, which we do now, completely free of charge. And
Kirsty and Natty, look, schools can be, well, they're difficult places for kids. Kids don't want to appear being any different to anyone else. And I guess they don't want to know that they're going in there, and anyone can go in there, but it's all very subtle. No one needs to know anything, do they?
No, we wanted to refrain from getting people's details in terms of benefit information. So the service was open to everybody. We didn't want to ever stipulate who couldn't use the service, and try and reduce that stigma to second-hand clothing as well as the barrier to education, because children have a right to go to school. They also have a right to dress like everybody else. Uniforms are in place, and that's probably never going to go away. But for us to give the children the opportunity to go to school and look and dress like everybody else and still feel part of that community was a huge thing for us, especially for me as a parent.
But, Natalie, I mean, the demand is there. I mean, this was only meant to be a 6-week holiday project for school uniforms, and now you've got a 3-room shop there, so it's needed.
It was, yeah. The project was initially only supposed to run for the 6 weeks holidays last year. That demand increased as we were due to close our doors. And what happened was parents were saying to us things like, what are we going to do when you're not there? Obviously, uniforms not available all year round in store. So we then made the decision to keep the project running. As the winter approached, we were in massive need of things like coats, boots, appropriate shoes and clothing, and that demand just increased, as did everyday clothing. So we then went, opened a 3-room shop, which initially supplied clothing, and so far we've helped over 3,000 families with school uniform alone since July last year.
And Kirsty, you're one of those people that's had help and benefited from it. You're a really good example of how it works and why it works. Tell us about your experience of it all.
I was struggling. Obviously, it's a cost of logos, and my son, he's kind of at the age where he's like, well, why haven't I got a logo jumper? But obviously logos cost, it's more cost to T-shirts, jumpers, trousers, trainers, there's PE kits. school bags, there's everything. And it's just for him to kind of fit in and not feel any different from any other child that's in the school as well.
Yeah,
that's the
it's so
bit, Alice, isn't it? Everyone wants to fit in. You don't want to stand out in school. You just want to blend in with the crowd.
Fantastic for these ladies with this local initiative. I mean, I think it's absolutely brilliant. You know, everyone in your area will be hugely grateful, but in other areas they're saying, oh my goodness, we want that, we need that, because logos are local.
Yeah.
They're absolutely local, and if you're in a local area and you can't get hold of that logo, then that logo jumper, then you've got to buy it. Now, this is happening through schools themselves. The PTA, the Parent Teacher Association, should be having sales. They should have a uniform bank. If not, look on second-hand local Facebook marketplaces. You know, charity shops won't take logoed goods, but there are so many other places out there that will. So don't just think, oh, OK, well, I'll put it in the textile bank. It's got to go to a specific place. You have an ownership of that jumper. You've got to pass it on to the next child. And the good thing is that children don't want to wear brand spanking new clothes, actually. They want a bit of scruff in their clothes. So second-hand is not shameful at all. So second-hand local Facebook marketplaces, Gumtree, places with a geographical focus so that you can actually say, OK, well, this is my local school and this is where I can find them. Look at free sharing apps as well. Olio last year, 30,000 pieces of back-to-school equipment were passed on through the Olio sharing app, which is brilliant. They will have another initiative this year, I'm sure. There's no shame in it. It's local.
I think we're really good at shopping like this now as well.
Oh, amazing.
I think more and more you buy pre-loved or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
It's on your radar, isn't it?
And I have to say that turning now to what's on the high street, it's good quality and it will last, so it needs to be passed on. If you've got a child who's hard-wearing on their clothes, then, you know, just check the quality first. And I think that the shops have done really well. Let's talk about Tesco first. They've got 2 packs of trousers from £7. Their school deals are going to be in shops on the 24th of July, 12th of July in Scotland. A full outfit works out at something like £9.33. And the big news from Tesco is their uniforms are going to be on club card deals. So that's absolutely something to look out for.
But again, no branding. This is just for your basics,
no, absolutely. This is for the basics.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get those logo things or put pressure on your school to take away those logoed items.
But hopefully it's just a branded sweater on top of that.
These are all the no-branded things, and you can do the basic uniforms for very little. Sainsbury's are supporting families, not increasing their 2 range. They're going to keep that. That's nice and cheap. That's at last year's prices. 2 polo shirts for £5. That's a really good deal. That's one next to Craig. 100.
That one there.
So, and they do a 150-day guarantee. Asda, the ones you've got, start at £3, 100%. They're looking at sustainable materials, really being careful about sourcing things responsibly. And also, Asda are very sensitive to the children that have sensory needs. So no bulky seams. Your child might not be able to cope with a zip. They're really good about that. And they're also very good about not
like the little detail around the collar as well.
Really good. And they all do. John Lewis, any day range, you know if you put a John Lewis jumper in the wash, it's going to come out the same shape that it went in. Really good quality, available all year round. So pack of 3 shirts, £9 to £15 according to size. Really good quality. M&S as well, they have good things starting at £7 for a multi-pack. And Aldi, lovely bright colours. I think they win the softest fleece in a school sweatshirt award. And those are children's sweatshirts from £1.50, and they have this price-matching uniform bundles from £5. So if you find it cheaper anywhere else, they will match it. So it's all going to be there. It's those logoed bits you've got to be careful with.
And that's why we need Lorraine and Kirsty, who are doing such a brilliant job.
Well done,
and with mortgages going up, Natalie and Kirsty, my apologies, Natalie. Mortgage crisis at the moment, all the talk. You're only going to get busier.
I know.
So look, great
well
job.
done, you two.
Don't go anywhere.
Yeah. Alice, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.